After my grandfather died, I discovered he had left me everything, but my parents secretly stole the entire inheritance. With the help of a mysterious time man tied to my grandfather's past, I uncovered a web of lies, betrayal, and fraud that tore my family apart. I was in the middle of my shift at the auto shop when my phone buzzed with a message from my mom. "Call us when you get a chance. Grandpa passed away." It didn't hit me right away. Grandpa Joe had been sick for years, but somehow he always pulled through. I sat down on the curb outside and stared at the message. A weird mix of guilt and confusion settled in my gut. Mostly because no one had told me he was in such bad shape recently. No warning, no hospital visits, nothing. That night, I drove straight to my parents' house. The lights were off, but I could see movement inside. When they let me in, Mom hugged me like everything was normal, like she hadn't just blindsided me with a text message about the only grandparent I had left. "We didn't want to worry you while you were working," Dad said over dinner, too casually. Everything happened so fast. I believed them at first. I figured maybe Grandpa wanted it that way, to go quietly, without fuss. But then something weird happened. A few days later, my cousin Lily called me crying. "Did you get anything?" she asked. "Get what?" "The inheritance. Grandpa told me he was leaving you something big. Said he'd already talked to a lawyer and everything." I froze. Inheritance? No one had said a word about that. "What are you talking about?" I asked. She sniffled. "The will. I got some money. Not a lot, but Grandpa told me he left you the lake house. The one in Vermont." I nearly dropped the phone. My parents hadn't mentioned a will. They hadn't mentioned a damn thing about Vermont. That was the moment I knew something was very, very wrong. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing back to what Lily had said. The lake house? That place was sacred. Grandpa Joe used to take me there every summer, just the two of us, fishing, late-night campfires, old jazz records on vinyl. He even told me once, "This house will be yours someday, kiddo. I want you to keep the memories alive." And now it was gone? The next morning, I casually brought it up with my parents over breakfast. "So, was there a will?" Dad didn't even blink. "Of course. Just basic stuff. We're handling it with the lawyer." "What about the lake house?" There was a pause. Mom shot Dad a look, then said, "It was sold before he passed. He needed the money for his care." That didn't sit right with me. I left the table and called Lily again. She insisted that Grandpa had made a will after selling another property specifically so the lake house could go to me. She even remembered the name of the lawyer. James Holloway in Burlington. I drove up that same day for hours straight. Holloway's office was in a small brick building behind a coffee shop. When I walked in and introduced myself, the receptionist looked startled. She disappeared into the back and came out with Holloway himself, a balding man with sharp glasses and sharper eyes. "Are you Lucas?" he asked. I nodded. "I've been trying to reach you. Your parents told me you declined your share, that you didn't want to be involved." "What?" I nearly shouted. He blinked, confused. "Your father signed documents stating you relinquished your inheritance. Said you were too busy with your job and didn't want the hassle." I was shaking. "I never signed anything. I never even saw anything." He sighed, then unlocked a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick envelope. Inside was a copy of the will. Grandpa had, in fact, left me the lake house, a car, and $75,000 in cash. But there, stapled to the back, was a forged signature. Mine. I stared at it, my heart pounding. "This isn't mine," I whispered. "They faked this." Holloway looked grim. "If this is true, your parents committed fraud." And then he added something that made my stomach twist. "The lake house was sold last month to a company in your father's name." I couldn't believe it. My parents hadn't just lied. They forged my name and sold off the only place I ever felt truly safe. My grandfather's last gift to me, erased like it meant nothing. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the betrayal, the cold-blooded calculation. I left Holloway's office in a daze, clutching a copy of the will and the forged signature. My phone buzzed, a text from my mom. "Don't go digging into things you don't understand. You'll only make it harder on yourself." That chilled me to the bone. When I got back home, I confronted them. I dropped the envelope on the kitchen table. "You lied. You faked my signature. You stole my inheritance." Dad didn't even look surprised. Don't be dramatic. You were never going to do anything with that place. We needed the money. For what? I snapped. You have pensions, the house, Mom's jewelry line. Mom interrupted, her tone cool. We were in debt. Deep debt. You wouldn't understand. I took a step forward, my hands trembling. I trusted you. Grandpa trusted you. And then came a next blow. Dad's voice lowered. You weren't his only grandchild. What does that mean? He looked at me with something like contempt. Joe had another child, a son, born after your grandmother died. He showed up last year, and Joe gave him something too. That's why we needed the lake house. We had to buy him out of his share. I stood there in stunned silence. A hidden uncle? I couldn't process it. But then Dad added, and before you get any bright ideas, your grandfather left instructions that everything should be kept in the family. It's not like we gave it to strangers. I stormed out. Later that night, Lily came over. She brought her laptop and started digging. It turns out the company that bought the lake house wasn't just under Dad's name. It was a shell corporation registered offshore. They weren't in debt. They were laundering the inheritance, hiding it. And then she found something else. Large wire transfers from that same shell company, straight into an account in Thailand. I stared at the screen. What the hell is this? I whispered, and Lily just stared back and said, your mom and dad didn't just keep your money, they're hiding a life you know nothing about. The Thailand transfers weren't a one-time thing. There were dozens of them, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. I couldn't wrap my head around it. What the hell were they hiding? Lily and I started connecting dots. Most of the payments were labeled under consulting fees or medical services. Both vague, both suspicious. So we traced the recipient. It took some digging, but we finally hit a name, Somsak Naran, a man in his 20s living in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And then Lily pulled up his socials. He was beautiful, like influencer level beautiful. Shirtless photos on tropical beaches, expensive watches, designer clothes. All tagged with vague captions like #blessed and #sponsorebelove. And then came a gut punch. One post from 6 months ago, a candlelit dinner with someone whose face was cropped out, but the arm, the watch on the wrist, it was unmistakable. It was my dad's Rolex. I felt like throwing up. Your dad's sending money to this guy? Lily said, eyes wide. Is this like a... I finished her sentence in my head. An affair. My father was having an affair. With a young man. Using the inheritance money from my dead grandfather to bankroll a secret life on another continent. My mom had to know. Or maybe she didn't. But either way, I had no words. I printed out everything. The transactions, the social media screenshots, the fake shell company documents. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew I had to do something. But before I could act, I got a phone call. From an unknown number. Hello. A man's voice, thick Thai accent. You don't know me, but I need to warn you. Your parents are not who you think they are. My breath caught. Who is this? Somsak. Your father. He's dangerous. I tried to leave. He threatened me. Said he'd ruin my family if I talked. I'm sorry I took the money. I didn't know how deep it went. Deep? What was deeper than cheating and stealing a dead man's inheritance? I'm coming to the States, Somsak said. I need to tell you everything in person. There are things you don't know. Things about your grandfather, too. And then he hung up. I just stood there in my room, my heart pounding. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not just because of the lies, the betrayal, the secret affair, but because now there was a mystery. Something even darker than what I thought. Something about Grandpa. Something worth burying under threats and offshore transfers. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about money anymore. Somsak arrived 3 days later. He looked nothing like the polished Instagram photos. He was thin, nervous, and clearly scared. He met me and Lily at a quiet coffee shop, constantly glancing over his shoulder like someone might be following him. I didn't come here to destroy your family, he said quietly, but you deserve to know the truth. And then he told us everything. My grandfather, before his death, had written a new will, one that left the house, the savings, and a large part of his estate to me, not to my parents. He'd seen something in them, a kind of greed and anger. Apparently, they'd fought viciously in his last months. My grandfather had even confided in Somsak, of all people. Because Somsak had been hired as a caregiver back when he was just starting out in Thailand and struggling. Your grandfather trusted me, Somsak said. He asked me to send a copy of the new will to a lawyer in the US. But the original disappeared after he died. And the lawyer? Found dead in an accidental fire weeks later. The room spun. You're saying, my parents had the will destroyed? Covered up his actual wishes. They promised me money, a better life. Then they changed. Your father said if I ever spoke, he'd make sure I disappeared too. Lily and I sat in silence. The betrayal now spanned generations. It wasn't just the inheritance. It was a full-blown conspiracy. Fraud, coercion, threats, possibly even murder. I did what any rational person would do. I went to the authorities. With the bank records, the transfers, the shell companies, and now a living witness in Somsak, we had enough for an investigation. It wasn't easy. My parents were manipulative, smart, and well-connected. But the paper trail was too strong. The day the FBI raided our house, I watched from a distance. My mother screaming, my father in handcuffs, a neighbor asking what was happening. I told them justice. Weeks passed. The media caught wind of it. Family empire exposed. Son uncovers multi-million-dollar fraud. I became something between a hero and a cautionary tale. I didn't get the inheritance back, not all of it, but I reclaimed my grandfather's house. I had the will reconstructed through witnesses and court declarations. I got enough to rebuild my life. And Somsak, he stayed, got legal protection, therapy. He's working now, nothing flashy, but honest. We talk sometimes. Not friends, exactly, but something close. Maybe trauma does that. I visit Grandpa's grave once a month. I bring coffee and sit on the stone bench he used to love. I tell him what's happened, how everything unfolded. And every time I whisper the same thing. They didn't win, Grandpa. You didn't raise a fool. Hey guys, I hope you like the story. Let me know your opinions in the comments, and please subscribe for more.